Evening. Today is Monday, October 13th at 2025, and the time now is 6 p.m. And I will call to order this regular meeting of the Town of Mead Board of Trustees. In accordance with the town's remote participation and remote meeting policy adopted by the Board of Trustees on March 13th, 2023, by resolution number 21-R-2023, remote participation will be allowed. The meeting link has been provided on the town's website and designated posting place 24 hours prior to this meeting. I'd like to remind everyone present, both in person and virtually, of the town's general guidelines for public comment at open meetings and public hearings. The guidelines are available online and on the entry table. There are two public comment opportunities on the agenda for persons in attendance at Town Hall to address the board. The first is limited to items on the agenda, and the second public comment opportunity allows the subject, whether it is on the agenda or not, to be addressed. If you have comments regarding the public hearing, comments will be taken during that time. Mary, roll call, please.
Mayor Whitlow.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Here.
Trustee Adams.
Here.
Trustee Cartwright.
Here.
Trustee Crane. Trustee Crane, I see you online, but can you unmute?
Here.
Thank you. Trustee Hagan.
Here.
Trustee Schranz.
Here.
Mayor Whitlow, today is Monday, October 13th, 2025, and you do have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Mary. Please join me in a moment of silence for those loved ones we have lost. Thank you very much for your time. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again. We'll move on to review and approve agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight? Okay.
Yes,
May I have, excuse me.
I'd like to remove the ordinance number 1092, put it in the regular business.
Which one?
Which one?
Ordinance, isn't it 1092?
For the code amendment.
Okay.
State code.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I make a motion to approve the amended agenda, pulling out ordinance number 1092.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mary.
Trustee Schranz.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Hagan.
Yes.
Trustee Cartwright.
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. We have an agenda for this evening. Next, we'll move on to our staff report. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Trustees, you have my report. There are a couple of things I'd like to highlight or add. You should have gotten an email from Mary on the Weld County Town and County Dinner. That's on the 30th. It's on Thursday, the 30th at Weld County. If you're interested in attending, let Mary know and she can RSVP for you. And then you should also have gotten several emails from CML on their effective governance training. It's a 2-day training. It's on the 22nd and 23rd in Denver, and they're really pushing it hard. So if any of you are interested, again, let Mary know and she can get you signed up. The other thing I wanted to let you know, this Thursday at 8 o'clock out at Public Works, they'll have the graduation ceremony for the Citizens Academy. This will be their last day. So Chief wanted me to let you all know if anyone's interested in attending that. I think we had 8 or 9 citizens who ultimately are going to graduate from that this time. And then I wanted to let you know I will be out for our next meeting. I'm going to be in Tampa for the annual ICMA conference, City and County Manager Conference. It's in Tampa. So I'm leaving on the Friday, the 24th, and I'll be back Wednesday night, the 29th or 27th, I guess that is. And then finally, I did want to mention about the construction around town. Now we have quite a bit of construction on the south end of town. So along County Road 7 in front of where the new school is, that's actually work being done by the contractor for the school. We also have work being done in the rights of way in Liberty Ranch that's associated with the library and soon with the fire station. Just the reason why I say it is sometimes we get thrown under the bus for all construction, but some of it actually isn't ours. Now we have inspectors out there. But if you have any question about any of it, just give me a call or shoot me a text. Just because I know we get some calls in and it's more just people mad in general about construction, but some of it's ours and some of it isn't, if it matters to you. Because it really, now when you look, for example, when you look east, it's hard to tell what's I-25 work and what's High Plains Boulevard because they're really close to each other. You know, now CDOT's working on the frontage road area and building up an embankment there that'll ultimately be the roundabout. So I just say it more out of, I'm willing to take the hits for our stuff, but sometimes it cuts a little deeper when it's somebody else's work. But it's all, it's all in and around the town of Mead. So anyways, that's all I have if you have any questions.
Questions or comments for Helen tonight?
I have
Oh, Trustee Hagan.
the map he sent out showing, I think, the removal of a mid-block crossing right here near Third and Welker. You sent on a map showing that was being removed, right?
Yeah, on one of the additions to my weekly email.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the pedestrian crossing that was being taken out.
And I was wondering why the one on Welker was maintained. Is that because of the post office that they require one there, or
Well,
you have two? The block isn't very long, so to have a mid-block crossing seems extra.
I would ask Erica if you wanted to address it. I think the location of it and more of it is moving it around because of the construction. So,
Oh, is it just temporary?
oh yeah, it's all temporary.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought it was a permanent.
Oh, no, 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 no,
It's
no.
like
It's
that's
all,
the-
it's all associated with the construction. And so right now they're pouring concrete in that area, so they have to keep moving it. But yeah,
Got it.
those aren't permanent. The permanent pedestrian crossings are going to be at the intersection.
I thought you were just showing us that was going to be a permanent crossing.
No, I was just showing it so you're aware, because like I go through that intersection constantly and they used to have it one place, now it's somewhere else, so.
Thank you.
Trustee Crane, do you have any questions or comments for Helen tonight?
No.
Trustee Schrantz, do you have any questions or comments for Helen?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your report. Okay, we'll move on to our informational item, building code update by Mr. Matt Denny from Safe Build. Sir, come on up to the podium and thank you for being here tonight with us.
So I think there's a slideshow presentation that's been put together. This is going to outline some of the changes from the 2021 code, focused on the IRC, because the residential code is going to, in this area, probably, be the most dominant code in use. The IBC and the other codes that go along with this, of course, are targeted on commercial, but I think we're focusing on this because of, new development, new home development. So if you want to, oh, here, okay. So this is just going to go over some language change. And so every 3 years, the International Code Council writes a new code, and they write this based on suggestions that come in from across the country, whether it's from residents that live in towns, that comes through code officials. And so they recognize and they have boards that, of course, address, needed changes. So here you'll see there's a modification in the administrative portion of the IRC. And I won't go through every slide in detail, because I'll tell you there's 66 slides here. And I feel like, that'll take a lot of your time this evening. Please stop me at any time if you have a question, particular to one of the slides or information on that. So there were some changes. This determination compliance, this this allows, like, one of the determination section really kind of gives a building official, some power to make a determination on code interpretation. Of course, whenever it goes beyond that, there's always a Board of Appeals, which is, made up by people throughout the community. The compliance section gives a little bit more power to getting a warrant whenever we have that stop work order, whenever we determine that there's work being done that's being performed illegally. It kind of guides through a warrant process, which hasn't existed before. Am I just using the arrows? Okay, yeah. So this kind of outlines the sections of the code, and some reorganization. These things happen. They will put a new section in, write a new section of code. So there's some reorganization that happens to kind of place that. And everything that you see here is in chapter 3, which is building planning. That's kind of addressing a lot of things that occur internally to a dwelling. And a dwelling, of course, could be a single family home or a 2-family home or even a townhouse. So as you can see there, the 2 areas that are highlighted, that sleeping lofts was added. It's sitting now in section 315. A sleeping loft, of course, we'll define that a little bit more, but it was never recognized in the code before. It was a part of a home that wasn't recognized. Over time, we realized that this is maybe a popular interior finish that people would like to use. So therefore, the code has recognized it now. And in 320, you'll see handrails is highlighted. And that actually, handrails has always been covered in the code under standard set of stairs. Now this actually coincides with the sleeping lofts and gives some leniency there of how you would prepare a handrail for stairs going up to a sleeping loft. Snow and wind loads. So ASCE. This is an organization that we refer to, and in this area, especially, in this part of I-25, we're subject to some pretty high wind loads. Of course, when the cold air comes over this mountain ridge behind us and it starts sweeping down through this flatter area, it picks up speed. Snow loads, of course, same thing. We experience snow events, some years worse than others, but this tracks that and then gives us an idea of what those snow loads are going to look like. So we can construct a home, especially the roof system, in a manner that will resist, the worst possible case snow load. There are some modifications to exterior firewall construction, and this would just be the example you see there, the picture, when 2 homes are built in close proximity. The code has always addressed this in some fashion, but there's been some language updates in that. The last thing we want is 2 neighboring homes that are in close proximity. If there is a fire in one, that it doesn't immediately jump. It gives the fire department time to react, to get out to that property. And it slows that process down. There were some modifications to 2-family dwelling. And of course, that would be, years ago, we used to refer to these as a duplex. The code has always referred to them as a 2-family dwelling. So as you can see in the illustration, we can divide those in 2 different ways, either vertically in the top picture or horizontally in that bottom picture, being 2 dwelling units, top and bottom. So as I was referring to that section 315 and 320 that were added to the book, this kind of gives an illustration. So you can see on the left, that is like more of a ship's ladder design. So there are provisions in the code that address that and would give a builder, those exact dimensions on how to meet that as safely as possible. And on the right, there was a change to that handrail section that allows that interruption. If you see on the far wall, where the handrail comes up into that opened area and then goes to solid wall, there is a provision now that requires that, or that allows that. because prior to this, the book just said that it had to be uninterrupted. So sometimes situations like this can make a difficult to make that turn from that opened area to the wall section. So it's actually kind of giving more options for a builder to design and build these types of things. And then the sleeping loft, like I said, this is outlined in 315, but as you can see, there are some guidelines there of how those can be constructed and the size, minimum ceiling height. And then of course, all the way down to the ladder, and how that should be designed. And the reason this was added to the code is because if someone does have a small area they want to consider as a sleeping loft, the last thing you want to do is create a full set of stairs, because as you imagine, it takes up a lot of square footage at the floor area. So the ship's ladder design, minimizes that. And then of course, now we can fit that into code compliance within the book. A little bit more information on sleeping lofts. This just kind of, defines some more. And these sections of code, I think, were basically, you'll read verbatim. And obviously, like, one of the things you see at the bottom has to have a permanent means of egress. So in that sleeping loft, the code is still going to require that there be a permanent means of egress. Anytime that you have an area in a home where you have someone that could be sleeping, we want to make sure that there is an egress means available to them, because they may not be able to move throughout the home to get to the front door or another part of the house to exit, depending on where the fire might be. So now let's get into energy storage and vehicle protection. We're seeing a lot of new vehicles out on the road and parked at homes that are electric vehicles. So because of that, the code has recognized the fact that those batteries inside cause a certain level of hazard. So some of the things that have been added, you'll see there a 20-minute self-latching, self-closing door to any room containing energy storage. So just a little history. I mean, the code has always required a 20-minute door to be installed between a garage and the habitable part of your home. Because even with gas-powered vehicles, there's still a hazard there. So, again, what this does is it creates a situation to give that occupant that little bit extra time to exit that home in the event that there is a fire. You'll see also too that if there is energy storage in a garage, we're starting to see energy storage like a Tesla wall. I've seen homes where they have solar on the roof, and then they have like a Tesla wall, which is a battery storage device, mounted on the inside of the garage. We'll dig into that a little more. I think I have a diagram here that will show an example of, we want to make sure that the vehicle can in no way impact that battery, because if it gets damaged, then it becomes a larger hazard, possibly even an explosion. So here, yes, this illustration, I know it might be a little hard to see, but you'll see at the front of the garage where those batteries are laid out, then that hashed area would be the area where we're protecting. The area to the right of the vehicle parked on the right side of the garage would not, because, it'd be an expectation that the vehicle pulls in straight. We're protecting the wall at the back of the garage so that no one can run into those batteries. And they can be protected with just like a bollard system. It's like a physical barrier that would stop the vehicle before impacting the batteries. Some other, they just like a clarification in the code. Additional supports for guardrails, whether that guardrail be at the stair or at the landing up top. This kind of defines some more information. It's in the event that someone's leaning on that guardrail, and you can imagine if it failed, then, it could be a tragic situation depending on how far the fall is. Here's another minor update. You know, most homes these days probably have a deck mounted at the outside of the house. This gives some more clarification on how to create a weather barrier so that while that deck is attached to the house, you know, it's creating a more long-lasting situation, you know, resisting moisture getting back into the exterior wall of the home. Energy. I didn't make these slides, but I appreciate the So there's always been several ways to approach the energy code. And we use the word energy code, and really that's just talking about the insulation on the exterior walls and the attic space of the house, maybe even underneath if there's a crawl space. So this is just outlining, you know, there is a prescriptive method. The book, the International Residential Code, allows for a builder to use the book prescriptively and follow its guidance. Now, because I'm familiar with Mead and some of the home builders that have been here in the past and probably moving forward, there's a simulated performance, which they can, and they're very used to doing this. They have professionals on staff that, of course, submit documentation to us. The simulated approach or performance it might even lessen overall some of the insulation factors that would be involved in those exterior walls and attic, possibly even with the ratings on the windows that are put into the home. But there is an equation, of course, that allows for manipulating these factors throughout the house, depending on its size, depending on the number of windows. And then, of course, the ERI is your energy rating index. Again, that's a recognized standard that does something very similar. And I noticed they put tropical region at the bottom. Obviously, we would have to use that. So a little data here. And this came from, you can see the Home Builders Association of Metro Denver. You know, they're going to span out into a lot of the outlying communities. So currently the town of Mead has been enforcing the 2018, all of the ICC codes, including the energy code, which would be the IECC that's listed there. So they determined that there was moving from the 2018 to the 2021 version increased the average cost of a new home build by about $3,500 because of increased requirements for insulation. Obviously, you know, when you increase by a 10% standard or a 20% standard, the cost goes up. They have determined because of the changes from the 21 energy code to the 24 energy code that now we're decreasing the overall cost of $3,600. So depending on how you do that math, by adopting the 24 energy code or the 24 ICC codes, overall, you're really not making much of a change financially to a home builder because currently on the 2018 going to the 24, it would be a different discussion if we were going from the 2018 to the 2021. So U factors and fenestration meaning a window or a door in a building. You know, this of course just kind of outlines where that information is found. There's a table based on the region that we're in here in Colorado that would give based on, you know, our average temperature in wintertime, our average temperature in summertime. Also our values are going to be that insulation in the wall in the picture you see there, plus the insulation that would be in the attic. So this is just a kind of a snippet out of the book itself. As you can see, we're currently, or the town of Mead is currently enforcing the 2018. And you can see a side-by-side comparison to what the 2024 will do. What you don't see is what the comparison of that 21. So in the 21, say for instance, the ceiling R value in the 21 as of today, if that were adopted, it would be 60. So you see that the R value for ceilings was 49 in 2018 and would remain the same. There is an increase in the exterior wall or the wood framed wall. But with insulation technology, blown in insulation, closed cell, open cell, foam, these standards are pretty easy to achieve these days. Duct leakage, I mean, this is something that we've always been measuring. Of course, when you're putting forced air through a mechanical system in your home, I'm sure most everyone has what we call forced air furnace with an air conditioner attached. That is, heating or cooling the air within that unit and then pushing it into a duct system, in most situations formed out of metal. So this process just measures the efficiency of that. They do a pressure test with a device like this, and it overall provides the most efficiency, for that unit. And it will also help kind of lengthen the lifespan of it too. Oh, excuse me. Townhomes, so unit sampling, this would be a builder that's building multiple townhomes could use this unit sampling out of this section of the book, going along with that ventilation system or that forced air furnace. So they're not going through to test every single unit. It really just provides a cost relief overall. All right, so now, we're going to be more targeted on the energy code. Now let's move on to the next slide. I think we can get into some more information on this. So the Energy Hill Truss, that was created when the 2018 to the 2021, because what we're looking at, what this does is, if you're familiar with this type of construction, that's a truss that has a very high heel at the exterior wall. If we insulate at the required amount in the middle of the attic space, as we get out to the edges at the exterior wall, then that R value gets thin. So the Energy Hill Truss was created so that it kept that insulation more consistent, right? Because we're losing energy, we're heating air and losing it through the attic space because hot air rises. So this was a method that helped mitigate that heat loss. Now, I will say, it is not required to use the Energy Hill Truss. There is a method, of course, to use a standard, because what this will end up doing is it could make the roof line look offset, or maybe a builder has a framing style that they do not want to use this. So there is a method to increase the insulation in the middle to create an average. So here's one thing. I know this happens at my house. Bath exhaust fans get left on and they run for hours sometimes. So this section of the book actually addresses that. So as you can see, and a bath exhaust fan is required in the code, always has been required, to mitigate humidity. So what this does is it requires some type of control. You could put in the timer method you see there on the right, maybe an occupancy sensor style that you see in the middle and on the left. But that way, once the bathroom is unoccupied and someone forgot to turn that switch off, it will turn itself off. Lighting controls, again, if most of us have children, they probably have left lights on that we're following around, shutting the lights off. So this kind of expands the lighting control. And, there are areas here that are exempt. But in most habitable parts of the home, we're seeing this requirement for lighting controls. And again, the same occupancy sensor you see in the middle there versus a timer on the right, depending on what the use of the room is. I have an occupancy sensor on my laundry room because that's one area where you walk in with something in your hands, it automatically turns on, and then I don't have to worry about shutting it off. I leave the room and 5 minutes later, it shuts itself off. Oh, and here we go. These are just kind of some, the wattage per square foot is kind of outlined in different parts of the home and around the home. A few small changes. Oh. Yeah, so here, I mean, I think a lot of these things we're going to get into in these next slides, but I know that one, like roof underlayment hasn't changed for many, many years in the code book. Oh, thank you. So here you see a bit more definition on that. So it's really just kind of defining things better. And we'll get right into that with the next slide. So as you see on the left, space sheathing. In the industry years ago, they used to call it skip sheathing sometimes. So that's basically like a 1x4, 1x6 with gaps. I think back in the day, it was an effort to save material. Of course, commonly a new home's built, and we see OSB 4x8 sheets forming the roof deck. On the right-hand side, you'll see the same method, the 1x4 material without that gap in between. So the code book has kind of defined that better. It allows for more clarification. And we deal with this probably as a building inspector. We deal with this when an older home, has a need to have the roof replaced, whether it's just aged out, maybe there's been a hailstorm or something. So this section now kind of defines that better, and it gives that roofing contractor a better path moving forward of how they needed to comply and to make a long-lasting roof. No, some minor changes to the mechanical code. As you can see there, like a clothes dryer, because it's moving air and it's forcing that air outside. It's warming air to dry your clothes, forcing that air outside. So this 100 square inch register, that's going to allow, if it's in a room that's closed in, we want to make sure that we're providing what we call makeup air. We're forcing the air outside. If it's in a small room with the door closed, now we're going to create a negative pressure inside the room. So this, I mean, it's a minor change, pretty easy to install a 100 square inch, register that would allow air to pass through, maybe even from another part of the home. I think that next section, exhaust openings can terminate 1 foot above windows and doors. I think we had a 3 foot requirement before that. Oh, and this TMP valve, everyone has one of those on their hot water heater. So they've condensed those requirements down in the book. Now this refrigeration system. So we see refrigerant change and have a lot over the years. It's mandated at a federal level as far as I know. So we're seeing the industry has to react and change. The code will follow that, and then of course kind of write in and include these new refrigerant types. Okay, and then I think the next slide is just a picture of what I was describing. Small room, consider a laundry room. It has doors on it. In the event you turn on the dryer, close the door. And I would say, in my professional opinion, a gas dryer is going to start to create a less efficient scenario because it's exhausting air out, creating that vacuum within that room, lowering the the oxygen content because it's using gas or an open flame to heat that dryer. So this allows for that makeup air to refresh the room. Yeah, the next slide is just, of course, outlining that 1 foot above a window or a door, whatever it might be. Oh, a little bit more information. This is not out of the code book. This is just general information about the new refrigerant. We'll all face that. Everyone that has an air conditioner unit at that point when it finally needs serviced or replaced, of course, the old refrigerant type that has been in those units over the years is now not even allowed to be sold on the market. So, things change. And like I said, that's not driven by the International Code Council, but more at a federal level and environmental. This goes into the fuel gas section of the code book. This would, of course, every time you're supplying a furnace with a natural gas, a water heater with natural gas, we'll get into like a fire pit or a decorative fireplace that some homes have. And I like that they put this section in here, abandoned fuel gas piping shall be purged. We've had some moments up and down the Front Range of Colorado where there have been old gas lines that were undiscovered, not part of the home, but through the property where the home existed. I can think of a situation, I want to say 6 to 8 years ago, I believe it was in Firestone, where a home was sitting on top of an old abandoned gas line. And now we've created this building over the top, and it collected over time until it got to a point where a water heater pilot kicked on, or the furnace or whatever, that ignition source, then of course caused an explosion in the home. So I'm glad that they have defined this a little better. So you see their smoke and peppermint tests have been removed from drain waste and vent final testing. So that was peppermint. I'm not of an age where I remember that being a popular method. It was many, many years ago. But you can imagine the strong smell of peppermint when you use peppermint oil. They would introduce that to the inside of the drain waste and vent, or DWV. And then, of course, during the inspection process, walking down at each joint where it's glued together or fitted together, we're checking to see, do we have that presence of that peppermint odor? I couldn't explain exactly why they've removed that, but I think it's probably a more antiquated testing style because, like I said, in my 22 years being in the field doing inspections, I've yet to come across someone that wanted to do a peppermint test. Now, smoke test, similar scenario, we fill the pipe with smoke and then look for the area where that smoke visibly is coming out. So, air test has been replaced by a vacuum test. So instead of introducing compressed air inside of plastic drain pipe, which of course, there's always a concern about that plastic drain pipe bursting. Now it's required to do a vacuum instead. So this will require like plumbers, maybe even HVAC professionals to use a device that will put a vacuum, measure that vacuum, and then of course, let it sit for a desired amount of time to watch for any types of leaks that might happen. No, and then, well, yeah, average lead content has been addressed in here. I feel like we've been removing lead from our water source for the last 80 years. And then that last one, I think that's kind of important. I'm an electrician by trade many years ago, but metallic water service piping cannot be replaced with non-metallic until electrical grounding has been provided. Because if that system was originally installed and that water pipe, that metallic pipe has been forming a grounding means or bonding means for the electrical system, then this addresses that situation where a plumber replaces a water heater on a Saturday, and now they've used like a rubber connection and created non-metallic connection. So now we've lost that electrical bond. Some reorganization of the appendices. Appendices, of course, are at the very back of the book. They are not recognized unless they are adopted by a council. This was just a reorganization of some of those. Some of them may not apply to a community of this size. Now let's get into the Colorado Model Electric and Solar Ready Code. So as you can see, they're introduced in July 2023. The code has become a requirement to adopt alongside the adoption of I-codes in the state. Of course, 90% of jurisdictions in the state have been using a updated version of the I-code, the international code. When the Colorado Energy Office formed in an effort to, of course, create more efficiency and also to, we'll dive into this a little more. The Colorado Model Electric Code requires that if you provide a gas dryer in a new home, you also have to provide the option for electric. So the person gets tired of using gas energy, maybe natural gas prices go up. They have the option to swap the dryer out with an electric version without having to go through a major expense, call an electrician, pulling in a new electrical line that would service that dryer. Also would hold true for like a range. So a lot of us like cooking on natural gas. I do. But with the model electric code would require that if you provide the gas line, then provide an electrical outlet there that has the capacity that could accommodate a range if it was ever replaced in the future. And we'll dig into this a little more. There's some good slides that I think kind of explain more about this Colorado Model Electric Code and Solar Ready Code. Yeah, so all new buildings must have provisions for all electric. And, naming two already, a dryer is a good example. A range in your kitchen is a good example. The other one would be the heating source. So would that be a furnace or a boiler with a water system for heat? Then when the new home is constructed, it would be provided to accommodate either one. So then all new buildings must have provisions for the installation of solar panels. There's some slides here that'll kind of dig in a little more. It's really not that, I don't think the requirements are too difficult to meet, especially for a new builder, building a new home. And then the EV chargers. So we talked about EV chargers and earlier, and door separation between, where those vehicles are parked and the habitable space of the home. This part, which came from the Colorado Energy Office at a state level, will show requirements of how they need to provide provisions for charging. And here, this is just, these are some requirements. So when the construction drawings are submitted, just locate the area to show the solar ready zone. That's just going to be on the roof of the house. Pathways for routing conduit for to the panel or from the panel. Electrical panel being, of course, down at grade level, maybe in a garage, maybe on the outside of the home somewhere. Electrical panels be on the roof. So they would just show how they're going to establish a path. Number of location for EV spaces, and this would be spaces maybe within the garage. So electric rating requirements, as you can see, side by side there, we have an electric water heater on the left with a red top and a gas water heater on the right with a blue top. With the bottle electric code, it would just require, if the home is installed with a gas water heater, that the electrical would be available in the future if it's replaced. If you installed electric water heater from day one, then obviously you're not going to be required to provide the gas. So it's only focused on the electric. So as you can see in the background there, so we have a gas line coming out of the wall with a shutoff valve, gas connector coming off of that. And behind that on the wall down low would be the standard range plug that you would see, for plugging in an electric range. And in there, it kind of outlines it. It applies to a water heater, a furnace, a range, a clothes dryer. These are the major appliances that we have in homes that can be supplied with natural gas or propane or electric. And then you see at the bottom, so 2 spaces reserved for each appliance for a 2-pole breaker, because these appliances would require a 2-pole breaker, 240 volt. So as long as there's a dedicated space for those, they don't have to be installed. So it's not, that expense is not on the home builder, but it would have to be available. The space would have to be available. All right, exceptions. So a fireplace not used as a heat source, or a main means of heating. So as you can see the picture here, if you had a gas fireplace on your patio area outside, that's just decorative. So the requirement to provide an electric backup or source would not be required. So solar ready, this kind of just dives into the area on a roof. Most of us, of course, most of our roofs, if we don't have solar, we just have shingled roofs or some type of roof covering. Most of them would meet these minimum requirements pretty easy. 300 square foot of space. You can see orientated 110 to 270 degrees of true north. But any home that's built is probably going to have 4 sides to the roof in a sense. And you can see at the bottom, exception. So townhomes, less than 3 stories and less than 2,000 square foot, only have to have 150 square foot of dedicated space. So they're recognizing that townhomes that are built have a smaller roof area, so therefore a smaller dedicated space. And 150 square feet is 10 foot by 15 foot. Maybe the area in here between. So here's a good outline of a roof looking down. As you can see, if you have driven past homes or have neighbors that have solar, probably see a similar situation. And again, some of these requirements are just reiterated in this slide. And again, you'll see at the bottom, a dedicated space within the panel. I'm going to go to the next. Oh, there you're on it. So this is targeting commercial. So new buildings and major additions and renovations. Now the consideration of major, if it's an addition to a commercial building, and if it's substantial increasing the square footage, to be honest, I would have to research that to see what that percentage might look like, or a major renovation. If we were just renovating the interior of this building, then it's not considered a major renovation. We would have to disrupt the exterior, disrupt the roof And then, of course, now maybe we're falling into that major renovation. And again, the language is similar, you know, the orientation, a location of the area for the panels. So this just kind of like it's defining, we have 3 different levels there. EV capable, if we have space in the panel. EV ready, we have a panel with dedicated space, and we have an outlet installed that can accommodate the charging of an electric vehicle. And then installed, you see the charging station itself, whatever that might be. I personally don't have an electric vehicle. I have a few friends, I think, that have them. And it seems like, you know, their options are getting some type of charging device, charge the car quickly in the garage, a lot of expense in that, I think, versus when they purchased the vehicle, it came with some kind of charging cord that they can plug in their garage to accommodate the charging of the vehicle. It takes longer, but you know. So the EV ready is what we're focused on in the middle. We're going to make sure that when the home's built, that receptacle, meeting these minimum requirements, 40 amp, 240 volt, is available. And I like to, you know, describe this like if I was building a brand new home and maybe I don't have the desire to purchase an electric vehicle, the average homeowner, you know, is in a home 6-7 years, maybe. They sell the home, they move on, maybe they downsize, maybe buy something bigger, the family's getting bigger. They've sold it to someone else that has that EV car. So they, instead of that homeowner, that new homeowner, having to go through the process, tear the walls open, pull a new electric line in, maybe upgrade the panel, whatever it might be. This kind of circumvents that. We will go into the spaces, and I believe that there is a slide that might show that. But as you can see, their Colorado Energy Office required a charging station for each vehicle parking space. So as you can, if you have a 2-car garage, there's 2 parking spaces available. But there is a provision or exception in there that allows, and it states it here, if you're within 3 feet away of the space, then 1 receptacle for EV charging, dedicated to EV charging, can service both. So they recognize the fact that, I mean, even if you had 2 EV vehicles in your home, that you could charge one than the other, or, you know, you could accommodate both spaces with the single receptacle that's provided. So I apologize. I'm not fully aware what that acronym stands for. David, would you?
Specific.
Model energy, solar ready. There we go. Yeah. Thank you. I knew I brought him for a reason. So these things, I mean, you know, like our team or any inspector would be verifying these requirements are met based on the Colorado Model Energy Code. Obviously, our team would do the inspections on every aspect of the house during the building process. But then we're also going to make sure that we're meeting this so that we can follow the state standard and not put the jurisdiction in any kind of jeopardy for not meeting that statute. Oh, and here's a fun one. I wish I had my fire department counterparts. This wildfire resiliency code, they've been working on this for a while. And as I hear, it was supposed to be ready by like October 1st of this year. It's been pushed out now, I believe, October 1st of 2026. There has been a new map that's been developed. And really, I'll be honest, I was here when the fires happened, the Marshall Fire happened, and was personally involved with homes that were devastated in Superior. And I think it was after that that this organization got together and started to take a more serious look at some of the risk factors that we face down here. So, too bad we can't zoom in on this, but as you can see, this is the map. You can find it online. The website's there. I have looked at it. I've looked at my own neighborhood, and I'll tell you that my home falls in a bigger threat than the house across the street, which is 60 feet away or something. I don't have a lot of background to tell you how this map was developed. But, you know, I know just based on, you know, our environment here, low humidity, we can easily have dry summer. I mean, we can easily have drought. And so all those risk factors, I think, went into this. So we will have, the building official that serves here in the town for you from Safe Built has a lot more background information on this and can navigate this much better than I. And I apologize he isn't here, but he had prior engagement. Evaluation reports. So, you know, these are something that the International Code Council has been doing. These are reports that they may put out an evaluation report for a product, or the way the way drywall reacts to a fire situation. These reports are there for us to give us guidance and the builder that they know that they can use the product that's been evaluated and put it into a home or a commercial building. Oh, alternate for materials design. So this is a process that we've always used. I think there was an update to some of the language there, but this is a scenario where if I'm a builder, I come across a product that is not specifically spec'd out for the use I want to do, but I can prove that it, you know, meets the intent of the code. Then this is a process that we use, that all building departments use across the nation, where you can, you know, look at this logically, give an expert opinion on it, and then approve it for use. A good example that I recall is 3M made a product. It was a film for a window. Well, the code has always had requirements in areas where there's a trip hazard around stairs, let's say on the inside of your home. And architects over the years have designed windows close to those stairs because there's a nice view outside. Well, because the stairs are a trip hazard and the window's glass, we don't want to fall into it, break the glass. So we have a tempering requirement that's covered in the code. Glass has to be tempered. I ran into a situation where a product was developed by 3M. We're all familiar with them. It was a film that could be put on the window. So if I were to fall into that glass and it broke because it's not tempered, the film would maintain the integrity of the glass, you know, to a certain level. So that was a good example of an alternate method that was used in the past that I've been involved with. So design criteria, of course, you know, every time any jurisdiction updates their code, we look at the design criteria. This is going to tell us, you know, what the average frost depth is in an area based on freezing. It's going to tell us what that wind load is that we looked at earlier, what the snow load would be on a roof, how much pressure it's putting on it. So these are just things. And also too, like termites. We don't really have much of a threat of termite here, but imagine go to the south, especially in a more humid climate. Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, they're always battling the risk of termite infestation. So these are things that are covered. under that design criteria. Oh, and wind speed conversion, that's where we're taking what we refer to as a 3-second gust of wind and what we refer to as ultimate wind. So a 3-second gust or higher is sustained. And in this area, I'm just gonna throw a number out. I don't know exactly, but it's probably around 115 to 120 miles an hour. Now, you don't see that on a normal basis, but referring back to the Marshall Fire, I know that they were having sustained constant wind at over 100 miles an hour. And that's what caused that fire to move so quickly. And that, of course, as crow flies, is not that far. And that's just based on this mountain range behind us. That inversion happens, that cold air drops, it gathers speed. And by the time it gets here, it's pretty powerful. Exposure category, that this just is going to define and where this comes from, the ASE. These are like groups of engineers that have kind of done studies to determine different parts of the country, and this would be from coast to coast. Well, we kind of touched on this earlier, 2-family dwelling or paired home or duplex, all words that we've used over the years. There's just, I think, adding new language. We've always had that requirement to have fire resistive rating between, but this section is just defining that better. Storm shelter, that's made its way into the code. With some like general requirements, what you see on the left there, that ICC 500, that's going to define, kind of standards for that. We don't want to just put anything into the ground. The force of the dirt around it itself could impact the integrity of it. So this process would make sure that structure is going to withhold the. Okay. Solar energy systems. Well, as you can see there, I mean, we're getting very creative. I see parking lots nowadays, and especially in the South and hotter climates, where they have structures created that provide shade for the cars and have solar on top. But this is going to define that a little better. And of course, you see there, establishing the number of stories and fire separation distances. Oh, a new standard that addresses, lead content, drinking water. Obviously, I feel like we're so much further away from that than we were many years ago. But, it still becomes an issue in certain parts of the country. So, the code is written for international use. So some things, may not pertain to town of Mead, Colorado, but the book is written, to accommodate areas all across the globe. A little tiny dive into the IBC. This would be your International Building Code, which governs commercial buildings. So this was, maybe just a administrative change in the book. Fences used as a pool barrier are not exempt from requiring a permit. So there's a lot of things that can happen with a pool barrier. As you see, this picture appears to me to be a metal fence. You won't find this in the International Building Code, but in the electrical code, that metal fence now, based on its proximity to that water, would be required to be bonded. There are a lot of stray currents in the earth, and pools have always created a hazard. Of course, a pool that has been built in the last 25, 30 years, the whole shell of the pool itself, it's grounded. The concrete deck around the pool is part of that. It's all bonded together. That metal fence that you see is also bonded to that concrete deck and shell of the pool. So what we call that is equipotential, so that because it's happened many years ago, I mean, this was maybe more common of a problem than it is today, but exiting in a pool and having that stray current, touching that metal fence that maybe has become energized, and then you have a tragedy. So this just kind of oversees that safety of all that. So group S1, which, you know, S1 is going to address like storage situations. And as you can see, that's a container, metal container with some devices inside, whether that's a, you know, data servers or battery system possibly. Yeah. A little bit more definition. So as products are developed, technology advances throughout the years, some of this affects building code. So the building code catches up to say, you know, we have products today that didn't exist 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So let's write in some provisions that help create safe situations. Automatic sprinkler protection for batteries. I don't think that was specifically called out. Now it is, because the use of batteries is growing more and more. You know, in commercial applications as well as, you know, even in our homes. Oh, an occupiable roof. As you can see by the picture, you know, I've seen a lot of like apartment buildings, even some townhomes that have like this occupiable roof. Creates a good spot for watching the sunset. But so what they've done is define this to say the allowance for a single exit. The single exit would be that door in that that wall behind it. So of course that's going to get you back into the home. Probably exit down a stair and then have, you know, more exits available. Oh, I'm sure everybody's seen these. I know these are more common. I think the lock on the left is one that you operate probably with your phone or a key card. One on the right, obviously a push button. These types of things are becoming more and more, you know, popular. You can buy these at Lowe's nowadays. So there's some guidance in there. And we talk about, you know, egress doors. You know, of course, in this building, we have egress doors. Well, everywhere you see the marked exit, however we can get out of the house. In a single family home, you know, your main egress door would be your front door that you're used to, you know, walk in and out. Oh, power operated doors. We see these at our local grocery stores or local retail stores. So there's some more clarification. Now, those things that, you know, power doors have always been covered. They've been around a long time, but I think this gives us a little more clarification, a little bit more information about when they're installed and you know, what's the best safe practice. This is just referencing this manual, structural design loads on commercial buildings. And of course, well, updated environmental loads being wind, snow, and of course, you know, based on what part of the country or part of the globe you're in, you know, in the Southeast, they have hurricane level winds, even here. And then of course, going into the Midwest, tornado level winds. We go higher in elevation, we have even greater snow load requirements. No, speaking of, tornado prone zone. So you can see that whole region basically east of the Rocky Mountains. It encompasses everything in the United States east of us. And this was an updated map. Okay, that's our last slide. I wanted to get through as quick as possible. Been a lot of council meetings, and I know that's the last thing you want to do on a Monday evening is let's talk about code stuff, but do we have any questions?
That's the first, we want to get it over with.
What's that?
We need to get this over with. So
Okay, sure.
I'm glad that you're here tonight. So we need to make sure that we're done and answer questions from the trustees that you have pulled 1092 off to make sure that you have some questions, and I'll open it up, and I want to have an announcement from Mary before we move forward.
Yeah, just for the record, trustee Crane disconnected from the meeting at 6:20 PM and trustee Schrantz disconnected at 7:05 PM. So neither are no longer part of the meeting.
Thank you, Mary. Now I'll open it up to questions from the trustees, comments. Trustee Hagan.
The first one is regarding the electric and gas duplicate source. Is that required only in new builds, or if someone replaces a water heater, do they have to then put in both sources?
No, it's my understanding that it's required on new construction. So, and of course, when it's installed on new construction, then it would, you would not be in a situation where you're tearing into the existing home to provide that other energy source. So based on the studies that I've done for the Carter Energy Office, they're really targeting new. I'm just pulling up some information. I took some snapshots. But no, I think that the requirements by the Carter Energy Office are just to move forward with creating more efficiency and giving the option, not punishing someone that their furnace goes out or their water heater goes out. So they're not going to have to provide that second source during the replacement of that appliance.
And same with the commercial remodel.
That's a good question. If I could, I would do research on that and then, digging into that more. So based on replacing or doing a commercial remodel, I'm just clarifying the answer or clarifying the question. Doing a commercial remodel and then providing that second energy source, even though you're just going back with let's say a gas powered appliance.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. I'll have to get back on that, but I can have an answer in the next 24 hours.
And second question, does any of this affect the adoption by the town of the what's called the old code for existing buildings, historic buildings, where exceptions can be made, adopting these new IRC, IFC, IBC, whatever energy code that doesn't preclude us from maintaining that old code adoption, does it? Or does it?
So when you refer to old code, the code that you're currently on, the 2018?
No, it's referred to as old code by architects. It's that you're allowed an exception if you're in a historic building and you don't have to necessarily put in bigger windows or meet certain insulation things if you're in an old building.
Existing building code. Yeah,
Yep.
that's what we'd refer to it as. 24 existing building code would be part of the adoption. If the town wished to move forward with the 24, they could adopt the existing building code as well. And that, like for instance, chapter 12 in the existing building code covers historical buildings. So that would be, yeah. So that book, I mean, of course, there maybe are some slight modifications over the years, but every 3-year cycle, Currently, the 24 is the most current available. All of those international codes, of course, are written and reissued with the new edition based on year. So yes, it is available and would be part of your adoption, I would assume.
Matt, I think just if you don't mind, trustee Hagan, I think trustee Hagan is referring to a particular carve out that is a set aside that frankly, maybe none of the building codes would cover. It's architects use it when a building is a certain age and there's certain physical limitations that allow the application of the current building code.
Sure.
So, I know we've used it in the past, but I think if I could, I think what he's getting at is, does our adoption of the 24 IBC, all these different codes, does that in any way block that historic carve out that is allowed when it physically can occur?
No, it does not block.
Okay,
And so what I would suggest is adopt the 2024 existing building code along with the others. That is the book that will provide, I hate to use the term relief, but it takes into account if you have an 80-year-old building, and I'll explain it this way. If you have an 80-year-old building and it has sat here in town, it's been a restaurant, it's been a barber shop, it's been an insurance office, whatever. And over that 80-year period of time, it has not been affected adversely by wind, snow, whatever.
Yeah.
Then the existing building code is there to say, depending on the level of, changes that you're making, then you're right. And I think that's what you're referring to, because an architect will go to the existing building code to show, and it outlines things that, okay, if you're doing very minor things to that 80-year-old building, then here are the requirements you'll meet, rather than just going full on IBC, which is designed for new.
A particular example would be the energy code, because old buildings and the new energy codes are almost impossible to marry up.
Right.
And if you have to do the modeling of the energy loss in the building with these older buildings, even though they might be 18 inches of masonry and brick thick, that model doesn't account for the efficiency of that, and that it's partially buried by soil, or there's too many circumstances where, you just can't realistically try to put in all new 2x4 walls or 2x6 walls to get enough exterior insulation that blocks up all the historic exposed brick and whatnot. I just want to make sure that we're not being forced into a situation like that.
No, and I would say this, I mean, if you look, the International Code Council formed in 2000 and wrote the first book or books. Every 3 years they've been updated. And so what you have now in the 2018, that's, I can't remember the adoption date of that code, but that's what you've been on. New builders have been building under that. Commercial buildings have been built on that. Jumping to the 24, it's not blocking anything that would have been allowed in the period of time that 2018 was adopted, nor the 2015 before that or 2012 before that. So yeah, the books are focused on safety. I know there has been a lot of energy change, especially in the last 3 code cycles, but we're actually, there was a slide that was showing the increase in cost to go from the 2018 to the 2021, but now that they've kind of reduced that because studies show so that there's a decrease from the 21 to the 24. So we're kind of like almost at even when it regards to energy. Now I do want to make sure we separate what the energy code IECC book is, and then some of these other requirements that the Colorado Energy Office
Right.
has put out there as state statute. So we're all kind of reacting to that.
I just want to make sure that when we adopt these new codes, we maintain the maximum flexibility. We don't hamstring anybody. We don't, and that there's some recourse that someone could have. You brought up the Board of Adjustment or Board of Appeals.
Mhm.
And we ran across some issues where I had two electricians and a professional electrical engineer saying that what we were putting in, and that was approved by drawings from you guys. And then when we went to put it in, they actually said it didn't meet code and they held us up for weeks.
Oh,
So I just want to make sure that there's some way that for the appeal for if professionals are that you guys are listening to our builders also.
100%. Yeah, I mean that, in my opinion, Safe Built being your consultant, we're here to enforce the codes that the council has adopted. However you might adopt those. I mean, and of course, we deal with, and I've dealt with a lot of jurisdictions over the years in several different states. And, we're a hired consultant, contractor in a sense. So, how you see the adoption is how we want to perform the inspections and reviews and things.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to make sure we adopt it in the manner that's gonna be able to provide that.
Yes, and I'll look in to make sure. I didn't look closely to see. I mean, I would assume that the 2024 existing building code is part of what was in that that agenda.
That's correct.
Okay,
The town's currently operating under the 2018 International Existing Building Code.
Okay.
So this ordinance is proposing to adopt the 2024 IEBC instead of the 2018.
okay.
Yeah.
And I would say there's minor changes to the language in the 24 version versus the 2018.
Correct, and that's another thing. I don't think that you proposed the language. It's probably more directed to Marcus, so I can wait until that ordinance comes up for vote. If you prefer, we could talk about it now, Marcus. It's regarding the language you referred to as what's included in that. And specifically, I think it added repair of a building. I think property owners should have a right to repair and maintain their building in a
Yeah,
manner without.
What, you're gonna have to probably direct me to what page of the ordinance you're talking about. Or what section?
It was near the top of the documentation you provided us, or whoever provided it to us in our packet. I don't have that open, but
Part of what he presented?
No.
Part of,
part of the packet. I'm all for adopting the building, all the different IRC, IFC, IBC, all these different things. I just want to make sure that the language that the town brings in with it.
Yeah.
It provides the flexibility to our developers and builders.
Yeah, I'm not sure what paragraph or sentence you're talking about, trustee Hagan, yet.
That's.
Do you remember the article number? There's 10 of them.
I'm looking it up.
Okay.
So if I could,
Yeah, go ahead.
now this is just kind of an overview. The 2024 International Energy Conservation Code requires commercial remodels to improve energy consumption, but the specific requirements depend on the scale of the project. The code places greater emphasis on existing buildings and mandates energy efficiency updates for larger alterations and substantial improvements. So let me define that in my head. If I were to come in and completely remove everything off the interior of a commercial building, that is the opportunity to update the insulation in the exterior. That would be a substantial improvement or a large alteration. If I'm just simply remodeling the inside of a tenant space to open a new business, I'm not affecting the exterior. I'm just doing a minor remodel, adding a kitchen sink or something, then that's not going to trigger the same level of response to energy code improvement. But we can get that defined better. Because of course, I want the council to adopt the version of the code, or maybe even make amendments to the adoption that best fit the community.
It's under unlawful acts, under the violations 18-1-9 and 0. Violations and penalty, unlawful acts, number 1. Says you can't repair or remove. It's not specific to. Seems to imply that you can't repair your building structure.
It sounds like municipal code reference.
It's in the ordinance that you guys, it's on the second page of the ordinance.
Trustee Fagan, that language is exactly what is currently in the code. We have just restated the violation and penalty section in this adoption ordinance.
I guess I'd like to remove the repair and move.
Well, but
What
you,
was that referring to?
well, no. I mean, if you're doing a repair to the property and you trigger a code, pulling a building permit, you're going to have to comply with the code requirements. So to your point earlier,
If you're just doing maintenance, then you can't maintain your building. Is that what this is saying?
no, it's saying you can't repair your building if it's in conflict or violates the provisions of the building code.
So to define that a little bit,
How would a
there are a list of exceptions in the code book that, not that a permit is not required. To give an example, I mean, and then of course, we as code officials, we also look at what the state regulates electrical and plumbing pretty heavily. So we're also looking for things that trigger requirements for permits from the state. If you replaced a sink because it's aged out or you don't like the color anymore, whatever, I mean, that's kind of like a repair or replacing the sink. If you move that sink 6 feet across and 10 feet across, whatever the room, and now you're repiping, you're putting in more drain pipe, you're putting in more water supply. Now you're extending everything. Now that requirement for permit kicks
I'll
in.
give you a specific example just to make this. For example, if you have an window beam, cross beam above a window, a picture window, say in my building's right over here, and it's 100 years old and you want to put a piece of steel in front of it to stiffen it, why does that require a building permit? And why would that be a violation or a code, something that's contrary to code if you're doing some type of minor repair and maintenance of that thing? Because the old wood beam was not sufficient or started to sag a little bit.
Right. Well, and of course I see that as like a structural repair. And so, sizing the piece of steel to replace the wood, there's, if it was on the exterior wall, obviously you have load of the roof and any section of the wall above.
But the building's standing. It's not like
Yeah.
you're weakening it or changing it, you're stiffening it.
Well, same thing, like if I'm in a single family home and replace a header above a sliding patio door because I'm going to put in a new French patio door.
If you replace it, I understand that.
Yeah.
But not if you just, that's, you know, it's starting to
Re-
sag a little bit. I'm gonna.
Reinforcement?
Yeah,
It's structural reinforcement.
Yeah, that's how I'd see it. But I mean, without looking at your scenario specifically, just based on conversation, it sounds like what would fall into a structural repair. We just want to make sure that the material replacing or adding to, of course, is going to have the integrity to support that and the roof above and so on and so forth.
I understand this.
I mean, it's in place though. I mean, it's already there. It's already, all I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah, and I would have to look at it more specifically, I guess, but sure.
I consider that maintenance, I guess.
There, but I had my own question.
Any questions? Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I have three actually. Does a roof replacement trigger the solar requirements?
So if you're simply replacing, so let's say, existing home was not under these Colorado energy requirements, solar ready. And you're simply replacing, a hailstorm comes through, your contractor's replacing asphalt shingles with asphalt shingles,
Mhm.
then no. Because obviously, we looked at several things there when it comes to the solar ready, the size, the areas of the
Mhm.
roof, the orientation.
Mhm.
Those things, if they weren't met, then they would never be met. And of course, the code would not require, or the Colorado Energy Office would not require you to modify the roof structure to a point where it would meet those.
Mhm.
And then also too, I mean, if a roofing contractor is simply replacing the roofing material, then we're not going to require them or have them bring in an electrician that would then create the path and then the panel. And so, no.
Okay, that that answers that. I'm just saying it's a major repair and it affects the outside of the building.
Yeah.
Is this an all or nothing? Do we have to adopt the entire code or can we adopt the parts of it that we think we would want to have enforced?
Well, of course. So
I'm not saying that that's something we would do. I'm just asking it as a question because as far as in my personal opinion, solar for older homes is just a gigantic waste of time and money, but that's me saying that. And I know that you're investing in a long-term lease and you've got to sell that with the house. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of money if you're thinking of it that way. I don't care about the solar on my house, so I'm not going to leave. So, but in other people's cases, it might be really important. But if we decided we did not want to adopt that, then comes the other part of my second question is, what happens if we don't adopt it because the state requires it?
right. So that's where it's outside of our control
Right.
being the town. Because the Colorado Energy Office was formed, put these requirements out, and they're pushing it down to all jurisdictions. Different than the international codes that we're talking about, residential code, building code, mechanical plumbing, so on and so forth. So there is like a reporting process that the town will have to do as of March 1st or April 1st of 2026
Mhm.
to report to the state that they have implemented these changes, adopted these requirements, so on and so forth. I'll look into that more. We're kind of in, we're on, new waters here because this is this requirement that the state has been working on since 2023 is now finally getting to the point where we have to see jurisdictions start responding to it. So I don't know what the repercussions are for not following that
Yeah,
guidance from the
that's really
state.
my question. Say, what if you don't do it?
Yeah.
Is there a penalty?
I will say this, and let me just clarify. I don't have solar on my house. I don't have any EV cars, whatever. I mean, I've been in this business for a very long time and I'm passionate about it, just keeping people safe. So, I don't try to sell solar or
Mhm.
EV chargers in garages, whatever. But I do know that I think I've heard rumor that there are jurisdictions that are challenging the state. So, we'll see what that happens at that legislative level. But I don't have any facts yet because we're in such the early stage of this. And I think that our effort is to present this material. The town can understand what the requirements are and then what the 24 adoption does versus the 2018 that you've been on. It modernizes things some, whatever. But then, we can look to the near future and kind of go into this together to see.
That was it for me.
Any other questions? Mr. Downey, thank you very much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Anytime.
Mayor, if I
Yes,
could,
go
I
ahead.
just wanted to mention that I've met with Matt and his team, and the plan is hopefully in November, they're going to come in and probably, stay in our community center room and do a presentation to local builders and developers, because a lot of this stuff is pretty dramatic. And so their builders, they have kind of stock plans that they've been working with. So this is going to add a cost to the builders, obviously, because they're going to have to change those. But there's also particularly the Colorado Energy Code that's going to add costs. Like I know the 18 to 21 added 3,500 and the 21 to 24 dropped 3,500. So it was a wash. But the Colorado stuff will add some cost. So it is important, especially if somebody's on the fence about pulling a building permit in November versus January. We'd like to get it out there. So just FYI, we'll probably be going through a similar presentation over a luncheon with our builders in the local community. So.
Well, I'll say this, because we have faced, changes in the code over the last major changes in the code in the last 3 cycles. So it's always it's always an effort of us to go to builders and say, I know that a builder will read new requirements or hearsay about new requirements coming, and it seems very dramatic. We like to sit down and say, listen, here is a path to compliance that will minimize the cost, that will, not be as dramatic as what our first initial reaction is. So, we're used to doing that and to working with a builder to say, here's a path. We've used this in other areas. We've watched other builders do it. We always share information like that. So yeah, we always do our best to get there without adding too much additional cost.
Again, thank you very much. I think the most important thing for me was the storm shelter. Because,
yes.
I think I should build one just now. But thank you, Mr. Denny, very
Of
much.
course. Anytime.
I appreciate it. It takes a long time to get through this, but I think it's important. I do.
Well, yeah, I'm glad we got through and that no one else has any questions.
It's good. Thank you very much.
I can always be reached.
Thank you. All right, next is another informational item, Built for Mead update, and this will be presented by our business and marketing specialist, Haley McKay. Ma'am, you have the floor.
All righty, thank you. Is it on? Everybody can hear me? Okay, great. So good evening, everybody, Mayor and trustees. Like I was introduced, my name is Haley McKay. I'm the business and marketing specialist for the town, and I will be presenting to you a recap of the year and kind of looking forward for our economic development platform Built for Mead. So just a quick overview, Built for Mead is our economic development platform. It aims to foster sustainable growth and investment opportunities within the community while providing tools and resources to support our local businesses, attract new enterprises, and stimulate job creation, ultimately enhancing the economic landscape of Mead. Did I go? Okay. So to start the year, we rolled out our Shop Mead event. This local event was held from February 1st to the 28th to encourage people to shop locally during historically slower months. The purpose was for people to submit receipts showing that they spent $10 or more at any Mead or Mead area Chamber of Commerce business for a chance at a prize. And businesses included in the event were retail shops, restaurants, service providers, or online businesses. And one participant was drawn weekly on the 7th, the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th for a $100 gift card. And then there was one grand prize winner that was drawn on the 3rd of March for a $500 gift card. So some of the outcomes that we saw from this initiative was over 130 approved receipt entries, which included 24 local businesses and generated over $6,205 in sales. Furthermore, we have had 5 business success story interviews with local businesses. For this year, we have done interviews with Ritchie Bros Auctioneers with Clark Comerford, Rocky Mountain Saloon with Winslow Taylor. We've also had Chickenango with Jennifer McPherson, Highland Lake Brewery with Danny and Chase Atkins, and most recently, Eric Bartouche Insurance Agency with Eric Bartouche and his agents. Hasn't been completely done yet, so that's why it's not out on any of our social medias just yet. So this year, our main marketing campaign was through the iHeartMedia with a video advertisement as requested. The campaign was between April 7th and went until June 30th, 2025. This campaign had an overall impression of 487,000 views, and it was ranging as far south as the Colorado-New Mexico border and north into the northern areas of Wyoming. It was also seen as far east as like middle Nebraska and west to the Colorado-Utah border. So when comparing the two campaigns this year with the video advertisement and last year with the podcast and digital advertising that we did through iHeart, I compared it to the traffic that we had received on our Built for Mead website. And we saw some significantly higher engagement rates with the podcast and the digital advertising than we did this year with the video campaigns. And you can kind of see that. I know the graphs are a little weird because I had to kind of splice and put them together, but you can see that in there that this year the traffic on our website decreased roughly 70% from the following year. And like I said, this is the slide to kind of show those comparisons. And this slide is last year's campaign, which shows a higher amount of traffic on the website. So I cannot 100% say that these are directly correlated, but the graphs tend to track in similar patterns, such as the spikes and dips that you'll see throughout it. This year, we were also invited to attend a Realtor Summit on August 5th, along with some of our neighboring communities to present our projected growth and economic development plans. The planners and myself were able to go over our current development projects, including residential, commercial, and industrial development, and to provide valuable information to the realtors on what's going on in Mead and what we have planned for the near future. Furthermore, we have been participating in a business engagement opportunity. The business engagement opportunity was initially proposed to the Board of Trustees by a local business owner to strengthen connections between the town and small businesses. Since then, the town and local business owners have collaborated to foster relationships, share ideas, and create new opportunities for the businesses in Mead. The engagement opportunity is not a formal organization, but rather a collaborative space where businesses in the town can discuss ways to improve, share upcoming events, and explore ways to support one another. So some of the main topics that were covered during these meetings were marketing and branding, different permits like our temporary use permit, as well as our signage permits, the land use code update, which was addressed by former Community Development Director Jason Bradford, and then was also talked on by Acting Community Development Director Colin Maris. We spoke about some of the shop local events, like what we did at the beginning of the year. We talked about Built for Mead, different community events, as well as some of the pain points of our businesses. So some of the outcomes that we've seen through these discussions, they've resulted in different process updates, specifically the temporary use permit. It also provided networking and socialization of businesses with each other, with town staff, and most recently staff from St. Vrain Valley School District Innovation Center and Weld County Business Services Department. And we have been able to cultivate ideas to better support our businesses. So now onto our Built for Mead website, we will be implementing 2 additional items onto it. First, we are going to have quarterly business newsletters as requested by local businesses. This newsletter will cover a wide range of topics related to and or that directly affect businesses, such as state and local laws and regulations, different business events that are happening around the town, and other topics of interest. Also, we will be providing an event calendar where businesses can submit their events to us. We review it and then we upload it to this event. So that way, anybody who is on our Built for Mead website can go in and see what's going on around the community, not only with our businesses, but with also different town events. And we hope to roll both of these out by next month and get a feel for how they're doing with our businesses. Additionally, a project that we have undertaken, the Mead Wayfinding Signage Phase 2, is in process. So far, specific existing signs have been repaired and reinstalled. We have solar panels that are going to be engineered and installed into our 2 primary gateway signs, so they'll be illuminated. And locations for signs along Highway 66 have been established and engineered drawings are towarding completion. So looking ahead, what lies for us, we will not have any business engagement opportunity meetings for November or December. They will resume in 2026 on a quarterly basis. We will be finalizing our wayfinding signage phase 2 with the completion date set for December 31st. We are going to continue to enhance our economic development initiatives through networking and building relationships. And we will have another Shop Meet event sometime in February. Additionally, we will have further collaboration efforts with the Mead Area Chamber of Commerce with a co-hosted business appreciation dinner in February of 2026. We will continue to promote the business success story interviews. And for our marketing, we will potentially campaign through ESPN, which we have already kind of discussed on, but it wasn't quite fitting into the budget. And that will start at the beginning of football season in 2026. So that's all I have for this. If anybody has any questions.
Great job. Thank you very much, Haley. Questions? Chris?
The iHeart engagement, is that online somewhere?
So we have a specific dashboard that we can look at. So it's not something that is accessible to everyone. But if there's any other specific, are you meaning like on the dashboard or
No, the
like
content.
the content? Do you have more content?
I've listened to iHeart on my way to work, on my way back, so
Mhm.
2 to 3 hours a day. All day at work, I have never heard anything for Built for Mead
Yeah.
ever.
This year it was strictly video. So last
So
year.
I'd have to watch something?
Yeah, so last year
Oh, okay.
was podcast and digital advertising.
Okay,
But yeah, no, this year was strictly just video. If you're watching a specific program, then it'll come up,
okay.
however many
Because
times.
I'm listening to stuff pretty much 12 hours a day.
Right.
Okay, so that's my question. When these things get rolled out, where are they rolled out? And I'm gonna say why is because somebody asked me, where's the rollout for Built for Mead? And they said, because the only place I can find it is on Built for Mead.
Yeah, so in terms of like our calendar and the newsletter and things like that.
They just wanted, nobody even knew about Built for Mead until I said, well, go look at Built for Mead. And they're like, well, what's that?
Right. And that's kind of what our like I said, that is our economic development platform. That is what we're trying to push.
Okay,
So I mean, it's definitely could be through, different marketing initiatives like the iHeart or the ESPN, which we're going to try next year, or social media. We've been posting it a lot on Facebook, LinkedIn, things like that. Word of mouth, just like I said, we're just trying to find all the best channels to promote it.
yeah, I think shouldn't be geared strictly to businesses. I know it's Built for Mead,
Mhm.
but people talk.
Right.
And if they see something on there that they can spread to other people who say, oh, well, I have someone who's interested in, putting the building here or renting out this space. I've had people come to me and say, where can I find out about what's available? It's like, well, go to Build for Me because that's where all this stuff is. And they're like, well, what's that? So I said, go there and find out. So,
And that's a lot of the stuff that we've been talking to our local businesses about what they're wanting us to help provide. And one of that has been, hey, if there is a building that you know of that is available, how do we know about that? And that we're going to be including in our newsletter, as that information comes.
How about QR codes?
QR codes, I mean, we make QR codes all the time.
Yes,
there's
stick one
anything-
out there for Built for Me so somebody can just go boop and hit it on their phone and away they go.
I'm sure we could probably make one and put it on the website. I'm not 100% sure on if we have one set up for it as of right now, but it's definitely something that we can, implement to
I'm
make
trying
to make it more
to push
accessible.
this forward. I wanted to, it's a great product and I think it really needs to be pushed out. And I think it's kind of sitting in the background and waiting for people to go to it and they don't know it's there.
Right. And that, like I said, that's really what we're trying to push for. And a lot of that is also, gaining these relationships and networking with other communities and seeing what they're doing and what's working for them, that we can implement here and what's not working and just really fine tuning for our community.
Nothing.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much,
Thank you,
Haley.
guys.
Thanks. Okay, we'll move on to our first public comment of the night. The board welcomes public comment at this time for any item on the agenda. We will take comments on items not on the agenda during the second public comment, item number 11. Please remember that public comment is not intended to be a question and answer session. The board will listen to your comments and take them into consideration. And all comments should be directed to the Board of Trustees and not to specific individuals. If you wish to speak during this first public comment period, please adhere to the town's general guidelines. Please start by stating your full name and address for the record, and each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the Board of Trustees. If you are representing a group, you will have 5 minutes. We ask that all speakers and audience members treat one another with respect and dignity. Let's ensure we maintain a welcoming environment and avoid any actions that could be distracting. Ms. Strutt, do we have anyone signed up for this public comment period?
No, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here in the room that would like to speak to the trustees tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. The consent agenda contains items which are considered routine and are approved with one motion and vote. I want to recognize staff for putting these together and the board for reviewing them ahead of tonight's meeting. Tonight's consent agenda includes A, B, C, D, E. And so may I have a motion to approve this portion of the consent agenda?
So moved.
And seconded.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Hagan,
Yes.
trustee Cartwright,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
trustee Adams,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes, thank you very much. Consent agenda is passed. We'll move on to ordinance number 1092. Trustee Hagan, would you ask if there's any other questions? If you have any more.
Not necessarily questions, just I wanted to, obviously you can tell that I'm focused on this ordinance because I was impacted by this ordinance. And we were basically shut down for 6 months on our project due to a claim of violation that when it finally came to trial, a day before, the prosecutors recognized that some of the claims in the complaint were not true. There were claims of 8 red tags and 8 violations of the red tags in the claim. And that was the basis for taking us or filing the complaint. And then the prosecutor asked us at our initial meeting, which was after the 6 months, did that occur? Because we had no evidence of it. And we said, no, that never occurred. And so she's like, oh, we better settle. So I just want to make sure that there's some fall safe on this and whether all the power falls to the under number 2 of section 18-1-90. It says directive that approved construction documents or directive of the building official. Just so any directive, Jason, for example, wanted us to go into the site plan process and it wasn't required for building improvements. But he directed us to do that, and therefore the first 3 pages of the complaint were how we didn't go into the site plan process. We weren't required to, but it was in the complaint. I just want to make sure that people that have a viable way to move forward with their project without getting hamstrung by a criminal complaint of a misdemeanor that is not, I had no recourse. I just had to sit there and wait. And so I think it should have to be with the town manager as well. So this board has some direct response and connection to that. Because just leaving it to a staff person was not effective in solving that problem.
I think you do have any questions?
No, I'm
Okay.
just would make a motion that we either table this, we can approve all the updated codes, but table that particular language or strike that language from that it's the directive of the building official. It says approved construction documents. It should end right there, not say or directive of the building official. It gives one person too much power.
I will turn that over to, I would turn this, over.
Mark,
Yeah, I'm not gonna, yeah. I'm kidding.
Let me remind both trustee Hagan and the rest of the board that this ordinance, whereas most of your, if not all, the vast majority of your ordinances that come before this board just require one reading. Here, we're dealing with two readings because we are adopting these new updated international building codes by reference. So state law requires us to hold two readings of this. So the only thing you're doing tonight is adopting this ordinance on first reading. The actual public hearing and second reading of this ordinance is scheduled to occur at the November 10th meeting. So the town is required to publish notice of that hearing 2 times, once at least 15 days prior to the hearing and once at least 8 days prior to the hearing, which, Mary and her staff will be doing before the November 10th hearing. What I'm happy to do in that interim period between now and November 10th is to work, is check in with Tim Maroney and the rest of the Safe Belt staff to see if this language is language that is common among all the other jurisdictions. My understanding is that it is, because a lot of this violation language tracks with the language that's actually set forth specifically in the International Building Code, the International Existing Building Code, the International Residential Code. But if there is some potential solution, right, to your issue, Trustee Hagan, about maybe having there be I think what I'm hearing you say is, can we say not just the discretion of the building official, but can it be building official with the concurrence of, fill in the blank, some other, some other individual of the town, so that there's somebody else taking a look at it. I mean, we're happy to take a look at that between now and second reading, and come back with some sort of recommendation to the board. But this is the existing language that's been in the code.
No, I appreciate that, Marcus.
Yeah.
But I'd also say that Matt was pretty clear in indicating that the town can adopt the language. It doesn't have to be the same language that other communities are adopting. You can adopt the building code, and then the language of the ordinance can be as we direct.
Right. That's absolutely right. But this language that's set forth in the ordinance is the language that has been specifically recommended by Safe Built as your building official. I mean, that they have not at this stage requested or required any modifications to this.
Well, I think maybe instead of what you were saying with adding a second person on there, is there any way to add something for an appeal before it waits 6 months to see a judge or something along those lines? Because that's what he's saying, is there was nothing he could do from the time that he got those violations until the 6 months out when it actually went before the judge. There could have been something in that interim that said, could he have appealed to the board, to Helen, to Erica?
Yes, there's a process
to
to
say-
file an appeal with the Board of Appeals, and this board sits as the Board of Appeals. But in Trustee Hagan's specific circumstance, there's a very short window to appeal a decision of the building official, and that window was missed. So there was no
Okay.
the Board of Appeals at that point was without jurisdiction.
Okay.
We actually did file with the Board of Appeals, and you actually sent me an email asking me to withdraw that appeal.
I don't know the specifics, but I was just asking if there was an appeal
Yeah,
type process.
there is
And
an
you're
appeal
saying there is.
yes.
Okay,
Correct.
well, then I guess
But
that's so much for that.
It's not a timely response either. That's still weeks, and it's still only if we were told that we couldn't talk to anybody. Now that the complaint was filed, we couldn't talk to anybody. We couldn't even talk to staff, let alone the board. They wouldn't let us talk to anybody. Oh, we can't talk to you. It's a legal matter. You're gonna have your attorney call my attorneys, and we were out of it. That's how it was for 6 months, and we were not able to talk to anybody. And it cost us $45,000 in legal fees for town attorneys to talk to our attorneys.
One thing I would say, and this is just in my past, I came from a relatively big city in Ohio, and I was on a board of building appeals. And as a professional engineer, and we had builders, and situations like this would have gone to a board of appeals. It wasn't the board of trustees. It was a separate technical board that specifically looked at issues like this, where there was either a discrepancy in the code, like where you couldn't meet ADA or something like that. But your situation could have been remedied, I believe, by a board. I'm not sure, though, the way we have it set up with the Board of Trustees, it's in an awkward situation because the Board of Trustees is ultimately weighing in on through its staff on approvals.
And I came before the board, and I was given 3 minutes to try to make my appeal to this board, and no one was allowed to talk to me about it. So that was my process there, and it's not adequate. And actually, after that happened, I had another issue with Tim at Safe Built about code, where I had the 2 electricians and the professional electrical engineer saying that what they were proposing was to code and was already approved on the drawings. And he still held us up, and you had to get involved to tell him to back off. So it's not a smooth process.
We'll take a look at the code language. I don't think fixing the language in the code still would fix this problem. This is a unique problem, but we can look at if the language in here remedies that. What we don't want to do is remove the authority of the chief building official. That's why we have them here. Whether we had him as an interior and internal department like Firestone does, or we have them as an external department as a consultant, either way, the chief building official is tasked with carrying out this code. So we'll look at it, but I'm not sure it's going to resolve the issue you have. But we're happy to take a look at it. But like Marcus said, that language is already in our code. What we're adopting now is a repeat of all that same language.
And what I'm saying is, I don't like the code. I don't like the portion of the code that is in our ordinance. All the international codes, those are all pretty well set. Those are what they are. I think the building official should have to provide a written description of the paragraph and section of that building code that's in violation, and provide you a certain amount of time to be able to remedy that before any type of criminal complaint or whatever it was is filed. And we should be able to have time to respond and get our professionals involved too. And then it should have somebody, a neutral arbiter, because just, I mean, egos get in the way of seeing logic. When you have 3 professionals saying one thing and another guy saying, oh, I'm just not going to approve it, that's not okay.
Thank you, Chris.
I'm just reading through this, and if you take it as it says right here, it basically says the building official has if it's his directive, or if you don't do what's in the permits. And I don't know the whole background of this whole story, but if you do what's in the permits and the building official says no, doesn't that require someone else to take a look at this? I would think that there should, that one specific thing, regardless of who it is, they should have a way to say, wait a minute, I followed the permits and those were approved, and you've just decided to say no. It's really a unique situation. I don't think it would happen very often, but it sounds like that's exactly what happened. So I'm thinking maybe we just need to have that there can be a second set of eyes on this thing. Somehow get that in, that we can have an independent person come in and say, an independent building official, for example. I don't know how to say this, but I agree with Trustee Hagan that in his specific case, it doesn't seem like he had a way out.
I mean, I've dealt with Safe Built before, and I've also heard stories of people dealing with Safe Built before, and they think they're gods sometimes. And it doesn't matter what you present them with, or what you tell them, or what your electrician says, or what your plumber says. It doesn't matter. What they say is God. And I've dealt with that, and I've heard of that. And I'm not one to question their qualifications or what they do, but I have heard them getting into pissing matches with other professionals that also know what the hell they're doing, and doesn't matter, they're God. And so I don't know that I kind of agree. There should be a way to get an independent third party in here that isn't representing the client or Safe Built to say, look, okay, maybe you're both right, or whatever, or this person's right or this person's right, because it becomes a pissing match sometimes with these guys.
And time means nothing to our delay of our project costs us money every week. We're not in it, or we're not using it. So it's a big impact. It's not some just, oh, he's just whining because he, got a violation. It's a real impact. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars we lost because of that.
Well, let us look at it internally and come back with some suggestions. I mean, even if it's after the adoption of executive codes, I mean, right now, as Helen pointed out, it's this board of trustees that sits at the Board of Appeals, right, on these building code issues. You're not alone. A lot of other, small, medium-sized jurisdictions have it set up that way because you don't have enough qualified individuals that are jumping up and down and raising their hands and saying, I want to be on the Board of Appeals. But what we could look at doing as a potential solution would be to have go out and find somebody that has qualifications to sit as a hearing officer, or to sit as you could do a 1-person or a 3-person Board of Appeals. You'd have to constitute that. You'd have to pay those people. You'd have to budget for those funds. But maybe that makes sense because you probably only end up with maybe a couple of these per year, right? But that's a longer term solution that's going to take us some time to figure out what's going to work best for this jurisdiction, right? But that, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're saying is it might be best to get the board out of this at some level, right? And not have the board sitting as the Board of Appeals on technical building code violations, but to have, or even an allegation of a violation, right? But to have somebody who's a technical, expert in this area that can look at what Safe Build is saying and look at what the property owner and their consultants are saying
And
and come to it.
they would need to be adequately independent too. So it's one of those things where if they're considering their position and pay from the town and their relationship, it's a small community, the building inspection community. So they all know each other. And it's hard for them to really go contrary. So, I mean, it could be just a professional electrician, or it could just be, an electrical engineer, or it could be many different people that could provide that service. And it should be paid for by the appealer. I mean, the person asking for the appeal of the building official. So it doesn't cost the town anything.
Yeah.
But it would be administered by,
Cheaper than
than all that.
attorney fees.
Yeah, but the thing is, tasking this board with making a technical decision where they've got their building official
Yeah,
who
no,
they trust.
we're
and-
gonna
and-
defer to our building official almost 9 out of 10 times, probably just because we don't understand it, right?
exactly.
That's why
Yeah.
that's why it's
And if you
weird.
cut their legs out from under them over and over, like multiple people appealed, they're not going to work for us anymore. We've already tried to get
Or maybe
other,
they'll work with the builders a little better at some point, right? They'll be more,
yeah.
oh, okay, I see your point. It
I
doesn't
mean-
affect health and safety. I can do that.
The other way you can play this is when you have the department and the department, the chief building official works for the planning director who works for the town manager. Then decisions become more political than actually technical because the town manager can somewhat put their thumb on the decision. And frankly, you don't want to have that because just like for me, I'm a professional engineer. So in the situations with you, I went and looked at them and it was logic and I had to lean in a little bit on our building inspectors because as you pointed out, sometimes they can be a little over the top.
And so maybe that is the solution. They don't work for our development director. They work for you directly, the building officials.
Well, yeah, but I'm a unique town manager, overpaid and a professional engineer.
So they say.
Fire against me for my judgment, but you see what I'm saying?
No,
All
I
of
understand.
that isn't necessarily going to be in the code adoption. A lot of that is going to be in how we move forward with discrepancies.
Well, I know other jurisdictions where small towns like this, where they don't, before they ever allow one of their buildings to be red tagged, let alone a criminal complaint filed, the town manager will get involved and resolve it. So it would be much better that way because they want their businesses to thrive. They don't want them shut down, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it seems to make sense that it should be directly to the town manager.
So can we adopt the ordinance though and have them look at that separate?
Because we have another reading. Yeah,
And
we'll
then
talk about that.
can we amend the ordinance in the second reading?
Is it probably, if that's even
If,
fine for you. to
yeah,
do.
if that, I think yes, that's a possibility.
Okay.
I don't know if we'll have enough time between now and November 10th to come back with a concrete recommendation, but yes, that would be a possibility.
Okay, it was just a question that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
right.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 1092?
And I would just point out that the recommended motion is on page 119 of the board packet this evening.
Good for it.
I will move to approve ordinance number 1092, an ordinance of the town of Mead, Colorado, repealing and replacing articles 1 through, is X a 10? Is that a 10? Of chapter 18 of the Mead Municipal Code and adopting by reference and amending the 2024 International Building Code, the 2024 International Residential Code, the 2024 International Mechanical Code, the 2024 International Fuel Gas Code, the 2024 International Plumbing Code, the 2024 International Energy Code, the 2024 International Property Maintenance Code, the 2024 International Existing Building Code, the 2024 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, and providing penalties for code violations.
And,
So-
and sorry, keep going.
That's all I.
There's a little bit more.
Oh, I further move to set a second reading and public hearing on the ordinance for November 10th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at Town Hall. And I further move to ratify all actions of the town clerk to finalize and provide timely notice of the November 10th, 2025 public hearing in accordance with the applicable requirements of state law.
Second.
Sorry, I was reading it off of here.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please, Mary.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
Trustee Adams,
Yes.
Trustee Hagan,
No.
Trustee Cartwright,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you very much. Ordinance 1092 passes and we'll move on to our public hearing for the night. This is a public hearing for eligibility of Kitely Ranch annexation. We will first hear from staff and then the applicant may present. After the applicant, we will take questions or comments from the public and then followed by the trustees. I will now open the public the public hearing, and the time now is 8:14. And I will invite our interim community development director, Colin Morales, will present the staff report. Sir?
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. So tonight for your consideration, I'm bringing forward the eligibility for annexation of the Kitely Ranch property. So before we get started, I just want to let you know that the hearing tonight is just for considering if the Kitely Ranch property is eligible for annexation. Consideration of if the town wants to annex the property, as well as the assignment of zoning, will be coming probably in early 2026. We're currently finishing up working on a PUD as well as an annexation agreement with the applicant. So we'll be coming back for a public hearing with that as well. But the owner of the property under consideration tonight is Anadarko EMP Onshore LLC. Their authorized applicant representative is Peak Development Group. The total area proposed for annexation is roughly 134.5 acres in size and is generally located east of 3rd Street, also known as County Road 7, and south of Highway 66. So I've got a vicinity map here to help you get oriented. So to the west of the property, you can see is the Liberty Ranch neighborhood, as well as the future municipal facilities site. To the east of the property is the Mead Crossing Business Park. So Quick Trip, Club Car Wash, O'Reilly Auto Parts, those are all in that Mead Crossings Business Park. To the south of the property is that future waterfront subdivision. And then to the north are a couple of single-family residential properties within the town. So in order to be eligible for annexation, the property in question must conform with several requirements outlined in the Colorado Revised State Statutes. So these requirements include that 100% of property owners must have signed the annexation petition, that there are no other municipalities that have commenced annexation, the property will not be detached from the current school district, the annexation will not separate or subdivide any land held in identical ownership, and the annexation will not extend the town's boundaries more than 3 miles in any direction. So with this proposed annexation, they meet all of these requirements. There's also a contiguity requirement. So the state statutes require property to have at least 1/6 contiguity with existing town boundaries. So shown on the screen in front of you there is the proposed annexation boundaries for the property, with the areas shown in red being the parts of the property that are contiguous with existing town boundaries. So the proposed annexation is well in excess of the required contiguity. They provide about 2/3 of the property perimeter being contiguous to existing town boundaries. So pretty fast there, but the Planning Commission also heard this back on September 17, and they recommended approval of this eligibility resolution. And with that, staff also recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the eligibility resolution. And then with that, I'm available for questions, and our applicant is here as well, and I'm sure he's able to answer any questions that you may have as well.
Colin, does the applicant have a presentation tonight?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, this is the opportunity for the public to comment on the public hearing. When you're recognized, please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to address the board, and we ask that you please adhere to the town's general guidelines. Are there any comments from the public this evening? Seeing none, do any of the trustees have any comments or questions for either staff or applicant? Trustee Hagan.
Just a quick question. That little block out residential along 7 were they contacted to see if they wanted to annex as well?
Yes, they were, and I believe they indicated they were not interested in being included in this annexation.
No other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Sam, for being here. There are no further comments. I will now close the public hearing portion of the meeting at 8:19. May I have a motion to approve resolution number 60-R-2025?
I move approval of resolution number 60-R-2025, resolution of the town of Mead, Colorado, setting forth certain findings of fact and conclusions as to the annexation of certain property known as the Kitely Ranch annexation, based on a finding that all applicable criteria for annexation have been satisfied, as detailed in the agenda item summary report prepared for the October 13th, 2025 meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mary.
Trustee Cartwright,
Yes.
trustee Hagan,
Yes.
Trustee Adams,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Sam, for being here tonight. Thank you, Colin, for your presentation. We'll move on to our new business tonight. The Board of Trustees requested the town attorney prepare a resolution in support of ballot issue number 2B, which is the Town of Mead Sales and Use Tax for funding law enforcement services and facilities. If approved by the voters of Mead, this sales and tax will provide additional revenues to be used exclusively for law enforcement and will go a long way in supporting the Mead Police Department in the future. Thank you, Marcus. And do you have any comments for the board?
I do not, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I was asked to put this resolution together by the board and work closely with both Chief Newbanks and Lorelei as well on the language of the resolution. So happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? Trustee Hagan.
I would just like to get on the record that, this is the third year in a row this is being presented, and there was a couple of the board members, including myself, that thought we should wait a year and give it time. So I will be voting against the resolution. Not that I don't support the police and their funding. It's just I don't support new taxes until I think we've looked at all the other alternatives. The feedback I've gotten from people is, why aren't we coordinating with other adjacent communities for overlap and all this? So I just wanted to be on the record that's why I'll be voting no.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a motion regarding resolution number 61-R-2025?
I make a motion to approve resolution number 61R-2025, a resolution of the town of Mead, Colorado, supporting passage of ballot issue 2B, funding for the town law enforcement services and facilities at the November 4th, 2025 special election.
I'll second.
Thank you. Mary, roll call, please.
Trustee Adams,
Yes.
Trustee Cartwright,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
Trustee Hagan,
No.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you very much. And motion passes. We'll move on to our second public comment of the night. We have no further business. So we will follow the same guidelines previously stated. I will call on individuals in the order which they have signed in. Again, I ask all speakers and audience members to treat one with another with respect and dignity. Would anybody like to comment at this time? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our budget discussion, and I invite our Administrative Services Director, Town Treasurer, Mary Strutt.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. Here again to talk about the 2026 proposed budget, which was presented to you at your last meeting. So again, here's the process that we've gone through for this budget. It's been a little different this year. Hopefully this has worked for you. I've tried to incorporate a lot of education into this process. We've talked about the schedule. We've talked about the projects for 25, 26. We've talked about revenues and expenses, and you were presented with the proposed budget on September 29th. We have scheduled the public hearing on the proposed budget for October 27th. That's your next meeting. So I wanted to take an opportunity tonight to talk about, again, to make sure you're clear with the budget and what's in there, and also to talk about any changes so far, and to give you an opportunity to ask any questions now that you've had a chance to review it. So again, our schedule, holding this public hearing on October 27th. We will be asking you on October 27th, there will be a resolution prepared for you to approve the budget, but October 27th does allow us time if you need to continue that public hearing. So I wanted to go over real quick, some of this we didn't quite go over in the last meeting. What is in your draft budget in the booklet that I gave you? So the Board of Trustees was each given this budget in print format. It's also available on our website for the public in the public portal. So you first got a budget transmittal letter from Town Manager Helen Mickelbrink, which tells you what's in the budget for 2026 and what our expectations are. Then that's followed by the proposed draft budget, which is in the center of your packet. That includes all the funds for the town of Mead. It does not include Mura, the general, and the two general improvement districts, which are separate. Each fund has in it 2 years of actuals, 2023 actuals, 2024 actuals, the 2025 budget, and the 2025 forecast, where we think we're going to end up, and then the 2026 draft. In the back of your folders, there's 3 pieces of paper. 2 of them are about debt service. One is the vehicle leases through Enterprise. The second is our outstanding debt, which is a couple of dump trucks, which are on short-term options, and the wastewater treatment facility. And then there is a sheet on staffing and approved positions. So corrections and changes since last presented. Page 3, which I gave you each a new page 3, and it was also emailed to you right after the last meeting. The totals are corrected. The totals actually previously included Mura and the GIDs instead of the funds. So those totals have been corrected on page 3. We'll be removing some funding out of the general fund, and that says PD. It should be Board of Trustees Department for the meet, greet, and eat with the board. We'd like to add in under the police department a CJIS compliance consultant. We're looking at maybe $15,000 to $20,000 for a consultant to come in and look at our compliance with criminal justice records. The requirements by CBI are for anybody who has access to those documents to be fingerprinted and do some testing and stuff. So we're in the process of fingerprinting some more town hall staff and stuff to be compliant, but we want somebody to look at that and to look at our systems specifically to make sure those are compliant, but our vendors also have to be CJIS compliant. We had put on the page of, needs that we were looking at, but that we hadn't budgeted. We had put in there a parks position. We would like to add that to the budget, an operations supervisor specifically for parks and public works. Currently, we do have one operations supervisor position. This would allow us to split the public works portion a little bit and have somebody specializing in parks. We're getting some different landscaping issues with the community center, with the Gold Star Memorial, even with keeping those planters up on Main Street. We need people who are familiar with that a little bit more. So we're looking at kind of splitting the department, getting some specialized people in here, and especially with trees, with us becoming a tree city, we're planting more trees every year. We're also looking at adding an auto transfer switch to the wastewater treatment facility project, which is under the sewer fund. It's about a $30,000 add to that fund, and there's plenty of funds in there to do it. We will probably also be bringing a 2025 budget amendment along with the budget public hearings. The police impact fund, you'll notice if you look at the police impact fund specifically and the 2025 budget and the 2025 forecast, we're a little over what we had forecast. The police impact fund generally is for police vehicles are paid for out of that fund. And you may recall that the board approved 3 police vehicles to be paid for in 2025. But because the cost of upfitting increased so much, we only brought forward 2 police vehicles instead of 3. However, one of them was in the police impact fund, and we had to pay that upfitting out of that fund. So that brings us over what we had budgeted for 2025. So we'll be bringing that as a budget amendment. Now I want to go a little specifically what's through the book, and I'm going to do this quick. Page 6 is where the general fund starts. I put side by side for you here the revenues and the expenditures out of the general fund. And again, these are in your packet. So the major revenues coming into the general fund come from taxes. You can see that, that's the blue on there. The biggest expenditure out of the general fund is our police budget, which is about 36% of that general fund budget. Again, page 6, you can go through the detail of all those different departments. I was asked, what is the Public Works Department expenditures? Because they're usually right up there with the police department with their expenditures. The reason we don't see that all in the general fund is because the streets fund. We have the streets fund, which has that 1% sales tax. So Public Works, if you take the 2 pieces, the parks and the engineering out of the general fund, you add to it the streets, you get our public works is $6.4 million. That is coming mostly from taxes because that streets impacts fund comes out of the 1% sales and use tax. So our public works department is definitely a big department in addition to these areas here. Public works and engineering is also mostly responsible for all the projects out of the development impact funds and and the sewer enterprise fund. Street improvement fund starts on page 32. That is that 1% sales and use tax established in 2021. I have our beginning fund balance, revenues, expenditures, and ending fund balance. One thing you'll notice in this budget for this year is that our ending fund balances are getting pretty low because we have been saving to do projects for several years, and now we're paying out those projects. Page 36 is the Conservation Trust Fund, which is those lottery funds that we get each year and can only spend on parks capital improvements. Again, we usually try to keep that one pretty low and try to spend what we get from that lottery fund, usually on a playground, or this year it's going to be on equipment, which is like picnic benches and picnic tables, trash cans. On each page of the budget, you'll see at the top of every page that I just listed, there is an explanation of what is in there. So please read those. I wanted to bring back this this chart of residential building permits because this chart is used to figure out the impact fund revenues, right? And again, I told you last time that 2021 was our high water mark, but we're looking at about 100 permits a year since then. We've forecast now for 2025, 81, lower than the 97 that was budgeted, and about 91 in 2026. This is from what's come in, what's in the queue, and discussions we've had with our builders of what we expect them to do next year. And the reason I bring that up is because here's the Police Impact Fund on page 37. The Police Impact Fund gets most of its revenue from impact from each house. So it's $632 per single family dwelling that's built is the amount that goes in there. So if you just take that 632 times those 91 houses, that's how you get the revenues that we're anticipating, plus a little bit of interest income. But again, you can see that on page 37. The Municipal Facilities Impact Fund, page 39, that one does get its revenue from impact fees too, about $5,500 from each house. And again, commercial is based on square footage. So those revenues are higher, obviously, because the impact fee is higher. The expenditures going out, most of our municipal facilities funds were spent on the community center this year. There's still a little bit more in there next year. Again, look at the top of page 39 and you can see what's in there. Page 42, the Transportation Impact Fund, estimated $7,600 per single family dwelling. And I say estimate because it is the factor that it increases every year hasn't been determined yet. We get that in a couple of months. So this one is interesting. The $8 million in revenues, that's pretty darn good. That's not all related to houses being built. You'll see if you look at the budget that a lot of that is grants that the staff has gotten to assist with these projects that we're doing. And you'll see the rest of county of the 34 or 3rd and Welker project out of there. There's some funds there for 7 and 66. So again, page 42. Page 45 is the Parks and Open Space Impact Fund, a little over $3,000 per single family dwelling. I put commercial based on square footage, which is actually incorrect. Commercial does not contribute to the Parks and Open Space Fund. So I apologize for that error on my screen. Must have cut and pasted too much. Again, you've got the beginning fund balance, ending fund balance there. The Sewer Enterprise Fund, remember that the sewer user fees and PIFs cover the expenditures out of this fund. The beginning fund balance, ending fund balance, and revenues. And Capital Improvement Fund, this is just funds that are set aside for capital projects. And again, you've got, we're looking to spend those funds down. And I just wanted to remind you of this chart of the multi-year capital projects coming out of several of those funds. Again, those are all in your budget. This chart specifically is not in your budget, but you'll see those items in your budget, the 66 and 7 underpass, the Weld County Road 34 bridge design and construction. Those items are still in there. Strategic planning is what the board talked about as major focus for 2026, and you'll see funds set aside for strategic planning in most of the impact funds, municipal facilities, transportation, and parks and open space. And there's funds available in the, there's funds appropriated in the capital improvement fund for strategic planning. So the main strategic planning will start with the Board of Trustees, and then it may move on to some of these plans, and there may be other plans that I didn't list that could be identified. And again, this was in my last presentation, just to put out there again, not budgeted, but identified needs are that community center splash pad, cold storage at the Public Works facility, which would be looking at rebuilding that metal building that was taken off of this site. Some staffing positions, again, we talked about possibly planning positions. Police vehicles, because again, we did take some of those out this year and only budgeted for one next year. Again, potentially regional parks. I know that's been a big issue for this Board of Trustees. We did not put anything in the parks and open space budget to appropriate for parks. Again, I thought it needed to be part of the strategic planning, with conversations with the town manager. So we didn't specifically put those in there. And then County Road 5 bridge repair and replacement, we've mentioned this the last couple of years. There wasn't really the funds available, and it seemed more appropriate to do the strategic planning first and see what the needs were. All right, that's what you got. So what questions do you have?
Questions for Mary? Go ahead, Trish.
I have one question, just glancing through here really quickly. On the Municipal Facilities Impact Fund, page 39, we have a federal grant from the American Rescue Plan, and we had budgeted $1 million, but then we have projected 0. What happened to that?
Yeah, so the American Rescue Plan Act is the COVID funds that we got, and we got about $1.3 million. And we could only use that on specific items. We could use it on broadband, or we could use it on emergency facilities and such, right? And it had to be spent by 2026.
Okay.
Right? So we had budgeted in 2025. However, we spent enough funds in 2024 to exhaust the funds in 2024. So you'll actually see that in our actuals for 2024. And part of the reason was to get that grant all completed in 1 year in 2024, because if we get federal funds for grants of over $750,000, there's single audit requirements that our auditors have to do. And they mentioned that when they were in here. So they had to do a single audit specifically because of these federal funds. So the idea was get it all spent in 1 year and done. And we file with ARPA every year in April. And so again, the idea was to get it done before we had to file those reports in April. So it was spent on the same project.
Okay,
It was just shown as spent in 2024.
okay, thank you.
First I wanted to say thank you for spending 2 hours with me on a Friday about a month ago, going over last year's budget, just so I knew where everything was. And to give you a warning that I'll be calling you for another maybe hour long thing to go through some of these other questions I have. I don't want to spend it here tonight, but
Okay, I'm here.
all right.
I have no planned days off in the next couple of weeks, and so let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, get your questions in before the
I
next.
gotta read it first.
Okay. So the plan is October 27th to get this done. So get your questions, if you need to sit with Mary, like Brad did, and get those done. So thank you, Mary, very much. Do you have any other questions, guys? Okay, thanks, Mary. Sure. All right, we'll move on to elected official reports. Do any of the town trustees have anything?
Just one thing. I just wanted to thank the board for a really productive for a really productive work session or whatever retreat that was. Last week, I thought that was informative, and I think it kind of put us all more cohesive on the new development stuff and other topics we discussed. So thanks for that.
Thank you. I don't have anything to bring up. I just have quite a few Dr. Cog meetings this week and next. I just wanted to bring that to forward. But I appreciate everybody's time, of course, at the retreat and tonight, and for those who are with us online tonight. So thank you. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Hagan,
Yes.
trustee Adams,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
trustee Cartwright.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. The October 13th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees is now adjourned at 8:40. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight here in the room and virtually. Thank you.